October 16th, 2024 City Board meeting, and we'll call this meeting to order. As this meeting is being recorded and for the benefit of those who have dialed in, when recognized by the chair or for any motions or seconding of motions, please state your name prior to speaking. Please note that if you are dialed in, you may not make a motion, second a motion, or vote on any motion. It is highly recommended this meeting be in person whenever possible. Guests or person having relevant knowledge or information may attend and speak as part of the agenda upon acceptance of the meeting agenda by the board. All other guests must be recognized by the chair before addressing the board or participating in discussion. I'm now going to ask Heather Fira to do the roll call.
Mark Balistrary.
Here.
Amanda Schultz.
Here.
Tim Morris. Jeff Nuding.
Here.
Jeffrey Hauk.
Here.
Bob Terry.
Here.
Todd Murray.
Here.
Steve DeZura.
Here.
Brian LaFleur.
Here.
Kimberly Beatty. Michael Volt. Alan Turner.
Here.
Anthony Tripp. Juan Figueroa.
Here.
Michael Soretto.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Everyone should have received a copy of the August 14th, 2024 City Board meeting minutes. Are there any questions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the previous minutes.
I'll move that.
Brian LaFleur, seconded.
I'll second.
Second by the sheriff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Everyone should have received a copy of the draft agenda for today's meeting. Are there any questions, comments? Then we'll entertain a motion to accept the draft agenda for the meeting today.
Accepted, Bob Terry.
Bob Terry, second.
Jeff Nuding.
Jeff Nuding, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I don't have a clicker, so I don't know. All right, you got it. So these are the dates that we're looking at for 2024 meeting dates. We tried to stick with the third to fourth week in the month. We're getting back into January. I think this year we had to do February due to some different events going on, probably weather related. August was the only month we had to go with the second week. So as long as nobody's opposed, we'll do a motion to approve the 2025 City Board meeting dates.
Motion, Walter.
Motion Alan Turner, seconded.
Second.
Second, Mr. Soretto, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, we're going to move on to committee reports. First one is 911 Advisory Committee, Mr. Turner.
For those of you who were not here at the last meeting in August, we approved the 911 standards. Mr. Callahan, if you can read on the process from here.
Right, so now we have to go through the notice and comment rulemaking process for the standards. We're right about at the stage of being able to publish it in the state register. That'll open up the comment period, expected to run through most of November and December, and have comments ready for our review and assessment and final adoption in the time for the January meeting.
Any questions? Thanks, Alan. Before we get into the NG911 working group, I just want to congratulate Paul Glasser Jr. He's been promoted to radio engineering manager. Paul will be leading our 911 unit, working with our state 911 coordinator, Amanda, who's also assistant director. Tyler Lemire, radio engineer, and Phil McHugh, administrative specialist too. Those folks have been working really hard on the NG project, and there'll be a lot more information coming in 2025 on that. So Paul, NG911 working group.
Morning, everybody. So we had a meeting last week. One of the things that we did discuss, which I'll talk about later when I do my 911 report, was the next gen 911 assessment. We also discussed some call handling equipment. One of the things that was brought up was a technical standard for the PSAPs so they can prepare for NG 911. So we talked about the technical standard and I provided an example to the group. And then the last thing that we decided on before the meeting ended was to change the meeting. Instead of doing it quarterly in conjunction with the seat board, we're going to do it monthly. As we move forward to this point, there's going to be a lot more work to be done. So we decided to go to a monthly meeting so we can keep track of things. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. GIS working group, Jason and Steve co-chair.
Thanks, Jason Baum. So we've had 2 meetings since the last SEEK board meeting. average of 17 attendees per meeting. October, November meetings had to be canceled due to holidays. A special meeting is scheduled for the 19th with an agenda to have counties participate, providing input to procedures and policies for GIS functionality and support of next-gen transition. The New York State GIS Working Group co-chairs, myself and Steve Carr, Dishes, ITS, and ISTech, and MCP are developing a presentation and drafting questions for the November meeting. The group is working on advertising the GIS Working Group this meeting to a larger audience so we can get more than the 17 regular attendees.
Thanks, Jason. Just to add on, now that things are moving forward in a positive direction, if you folks have individuals that are on any of the working groups or committees, please ask them to start being more active with those, because now they're starting to do a lot more work. So it's important that if they're part of the committee or working group, make sure they're active, please. Okay, let's see. State Agency Communications Committee.
Good morning. We met on October 8th. We discussed the state agency initial response communications plan. We have a final version planned for distribution at January meeting. This is a communications plan for state agency use when responding to an incident or event on state property or state controlled area, just to ensure there's a coordinated communications plan for those responding in. And then we just went through the roundtable of agency updates, just to find out what everyone was working on, what projects and so forth.
Matt? Citizens Alerting, Matt?
We met on October 10th. We discussed how a cellular carrier, one of the carriers has announced successful testing of a wireless emergency alert, a WIA message on your cell phone. They actually transmitted from a satellite to cell phones that did not have terrestrial coverage. They actually originally did a test of it, and then they received special permission to use it during North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, and they were able to successfully transmit wireless emergency alert message to cell phones that had no terrestrial cell phone coverage. I think over the next few years, we're going to see quite a change here in the ability to provide service to cell phones when they're outside of the traditional cellular network area, either because there is no coverage or after a disaster. Provide capabilities to be able to do that from satellites directly to unmodified standard off-the-shelf cell phones. We also proposed the creation of a New York Alert user group. This would be for agencies and counties who are users of the state's alerting system called New York Alert. This would be a user group to share best practices and share templates and sample messages and so forth. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions for any of the committees? I will entertain a motion to accept the committee reports. Motion Bob Terry, second. Alan Turner, all in favor? Opposed? All right, we'll go into some program updates. We'll start off with Amanda Betts on grants.
All right, just an update on the PSAP SIG targeted grant. So the 2024 PSAP operations grant is in process along with the other ones. We are asking, the resubmittal is out, so resubmission of the PSAP SIG grant needs to be back to OIC by November 1st. And any questions regarding the applications and the process need to be directed to the Grants Program Administration Office.
Communications unit. Yep.
Okay, so 2024 county program schedule, just a couple updates. November 4th through the 8th, there's going to be a regional communication unit technician in Guilderland Center. And then the last one for 2024 is December 10th and 11th, which is the instructor meeting at the SPTC. So the 2025 ComU program schedule and events and offering is anticipated to be released in January of 25. Phil and Julie have been working really hard on that, so that's coming. We're asking you to share the schedule of the two events that are occurring in 2024, and when the 2025 comes out, we ask that you share those with stakeholders in your areas so that we can get more people to attend. Regional requests for communication course offerings. These are great opportunities to highlight the ComU program in your region. So if you would like to have that done in your region, just send it to that email, oiac@training.dishes.ny.gov. Some updates, so in coordination with CCECD, we're working to expand our cadre of instructors to teach some more state-sponsored courses. We do have a couple that are coming up. An incident tactical dispatcher, which is one of the highest rated courses that people want. 4 of those are approved, 1 radio operator, and then the new incident communications center manager that's going to be coming and offered in March of 25. So succession planning, we've been talking about this in our office for past couple weeks. A lot of the knowledge base for our radio technicians and our communication specialists is kind of becoming exhausted. People are retiring, and we want you to just be thinking about the history or the future of those technical skills in your 911 centers or for the county program in general. Some more bullets on that. End of report.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to Paul Glasser with a 911 program update.
Hello again. So one of the things we wanted to do real quick this morning was just give you kind of an update of where we are with the Next Gen project and some other items that we're working on in the 911 program. So that's what we're going to do here. So to date, some of the things that we've worked on, the New York State 911 plan, the NG 911 roadmap, we developed a staffing plan, we reinstituted the work groups, we did the RFI, which most of you are aware of, and we completed a continuum assessment with Nice Tech and MCP. So the New York State plan, it's an overview. Basically, we've been working on this for a while, long before I got here. We did have it up for review, but then when the assessment was done a couple months ago, we decided to pull it back and change some of the parts of it. So we're going to be working on that in the next couple of months. It's just basically an outline. This is the plan that will be there after Next Gen is in place. So this is obviously a living, breathing document, so it'll just change as we go through life here. So the roadmap, we also have this in place with the help of Nice Tech and MCP. This will basically give us an idea of where we are with the Next Gen project. It'll guide us through the project as we get through this very long process. Good. So a couple of things that we did in relation to the roadmap, we did an assessment. So we did an assessment of the state, not of PSAPs, but of the state, where we are, GIS, legislative operations, EZNet, certain things like that. We did this assessment a couple months ago. We did a GIS assessment. We worked with our partners in cyber, so we did a cybersecurity assessment. So we've taken this report. We do have it. We received the final draft yesterday, so we're reviewing it internally. Once we get through with that, it'll help us steer towards a roadmap and a strategic plan. So that's what we're working on now. But again, it's an 87-page document, so it takes us a little time to get through it. So currently, we're preparing for that strategic plan. We've also engaged with GIS. We work close with the GIS folks. We're on the committees, myself and Tyler and Amanda, we're on the committee meetings all the time. So we're working with them. Again, we do have our committees up and running. As you tell from our reports, we're pretty active, and we're going to be more active in the next couple months. So what we're working on in the future, again, the strategic plan, review of the continuum. We can discuss this at some of the work group stuff, but we'll be working through the stakeholder engagement and work with them to develop the strategic plan. And that's kind of where we are the next step. So we're working on the 911 plan itself, and then we're working on the strategic plan so we can move forward. So the next couple of months are going to be pretty busy. That's it. Any questions?
As I said earlier, the important part of that is basically if you have folks that are part of the work groups or committees, we're looking for stakeholder input on a lot of this so that you're part of the process. So please bring that back and make sure everybody is attending meetings and actively participating. It'll be a huge help. So, all right, we'll move on to federal partner updates. Chris Tuttle, is he on by chance? I know he was in North Carolina.
He is not.
Okay. Josh Green, FEMA. He's probably down there as well. First Net Authority, Mr. Cook.
I'm here. I wanted to share with you that the authority has put together a training class. So those of you that have academies, this is a program that's going to be rolled out next year. It's focused right now on the fire service. And it takes a recruit from basic history of communications, starting with Samuel Morse all the way up to the present. And it's designed in modules. Here's Chris. It's designed in modules. There's about 8 hours in total class. It will have a instructor syllabus. And after we're done with the fire class, we're going to roll it out for law enforcement, EMS, emergency management, and so on and so forth. We're having a beta class in New Hampshire in December, and after that, we should be able to make it available for everybody in 2025. More to come. Oh, the other quick thing, I got a call yesterday from Puerto Rico. Apparently they're in line for another storm back down there.
Yep.
So they wanted to know if we were aware of that. The First Net Authority has a watch desk. It's a staff watch desk. We're in contact with lots of our fellow federal agencies, and we very, very closely pay attention to weather events so that we can work with the contractors, AT&T, to get equipment pre-station. The other thing we watch very closely that doesn't affect us up here in the north as much as it does in the west is the fire conditions, the wildfires and things of that nature. So yeah, we're staffed up and pay attention to that stuff very closely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Chris,
Hi.
welcome back from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Any updates for?
Yes, so we currently are underway for our fiscal year 2025 technical assistance requests. I know New York is well ahead of others. The way ECD is doing it this year is a little different. They are going to take priorities by the states. So only like 1 or 2 priorities per state and territory to start with. And then based on how many requests they receive, how much money is left over, they'll have a follow-on awards. Looks like this could be a second request for a TA in March. There'll be more opportunities to get additional priorities. The nice thing is, New York continues to lead the nation as it pertains to the COMU program for the work that's been done over the last several 10 years or so. So that state-sponsored COMLs or state-sponsored COMU courses are, you're going to get as many as you want. But New York is to the point where you're self-sufficient. By the end of this year or next year, you'll be self-sufficient in COMU, which is amazing. Just like UASI grants years ago, where we always said, money's gonna run out eventually, these things will be sunset. At some point, I can see the TA program being sunset to a place where we want the states to be self-sufficient. And there'll be some, specialized things out there like cyber and things like that. But I don't think the TA program is gonna continue to be what it's been in the past. My gut feeling, reading tea leaves and seeing things. We also follow the director's priorities through CISA, and every year those change a little bit. Election security is always going to be a priority, but we also are looking at a lot of things as it pertains to critical infrastructure and China and what the threats are to America and what we have to do from a CISA perspective on that. So that does come down to the communication side of the house too, and looking at impacts to 911, LMR, infiltration and things of that nature. So a lot more to come on that also. So ESF2 has been extremely busy with the Southeast. We have Invest 94L, which is currently tracking across the Caribbean. We were activated yesterday. I'm actually not supposed to be here right now, just to be somewhere else, but I'm here. And we have people who are in the planes going down to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands right now. So looks like it's going to be a tropical storm or Category 1, but hopefully stay just north. But, a slight gust of wind in Puerto Rico takes the power out. So,
On a good day.
yeah, on a good day. Other than that, the biggest thing I can tell you is lessons learned from Helene and Milton so far is, I'll try to use my words carefully here. The work that's done at the state level and the territory level pre-storm with your commercial carriers is essential. It has to happen. And not that it's not happening, but you really need to know, 3, 4 phone number deep on how you have to get to the right carriers and what you need. It goes 2 ways. Number one is for the no notice events, you already know who you can call. It's not like you have to get everyone in a room ahead of time and say, hey, we're 48 hours from a storm, 72 hours from a storm. No, you need to know right now if something happens, who you're calling. More importantly, this is where I have to really be careful. The carriers obviously do not answer to government. We're partners together. But the carriers have another level, which is their national leadership. And if the carriers are having good communication and good synergy at the state and territory level, the national level leadership will kind of back off a little bit, ask less questions and get less involved. Once we start getting national level folks involved, it creates challenges with tracking down requests that don't need to be tracked down is already being dealt with at the state and territory level. And that was something that I can tell you right now, we saw very, very problematic in Region 4 during the last two hurricanes. Was that the local and the state level, the states were doing great work with carriers, doing amazing work. But then we were getting a million questions down from the national level, say, well, who's doing this and who's doing that? And we need this information. We have to work to make sure the carriers are filtering that information up through their chain of command while we do the executive level stuff and make sure everyone's aware. So kind of stay on mission, stay focused and get the things done and not waste our time and effort and resources on things we don't need to be tracking down, quite honestly. So that's really it for now. We have NICSWIC and SafeCom. Well, SafeCom's November. NICSWIC is in December. And then we have FIFA World Cup meetings at the end of NICSWIC meetings in December as well. I think you're gonna start to see a lot of that start up next year. New Jersey had their kickoff meeting, but there's really not enough information out yet to really do much of. So more to follow on that, and that's all I got. Next person.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, some additional reports. Dana Smith, our consortium chair, C3 group chair.
Good morning, everyone. Last night, we had the C3 meeting in this room. Went a little long. Mark did get to see the Yankees.
I did, I got home from.
He was happy about that. All the consortiums except for one participated, a couple remotely. We had some great conversations. For those of you who don't know, it'll likely be my last meeting after 14 years and 4 county executives. I've decided to leave that government service. So I'm officially in the role until the end of the year, but I go on vacation on Friday and get to carry one stuff home for a couple months. So I'm looking forward to. We've managed to do some good things in Dutchess and in the Hudson Valley. And with this, there's 2 things I want to mention before I leave. It was a discussion at the 911 Coordinators Association meeting and a discussion last night. And that's partnership and collaboration. We all know there's some significant changes coming. We're urging all the counties to participate in their consortiums, asking for great participation in the organization with the consortium chairs, working directly with the director. We all know the commissioner is very passionate about Next Gen and is going to be committing a lot of resources. And those groups, both 911 and the consortium chairs and this group, needs to really concentrate on working together. We have an opportunity to have a voice at the table. That's what we're sharing with, the counties that we work with regularly. And we need them to be engaged and at the table because decisions are going to be made. And if they're not engaged, it's not going to go well. And lastly, for many of you, this doesn't impact, but it impacts our society greatly. And that's our 911 staff. There's not a 911 center in New York State that's not short-staffed. Not many people grow up and say, oh, I want to be a 911 dispatcher, A lot of people kind of wind up there. But one of the things that's very concerning is their mental health. In Dutchess County alone, this summer, we had 4 definitely deaths by suicides. 2 of them were public safety dispatchers in different agencies. We should not be operating in a field where the job kills people. Dishes did a great survey earlier this year. My understanding is the results of that survey are coming out. I've seen some of them, what our dispatch staff is going through and the mental health challenges they're facing and the percentages of suicidal ideation that they're reporting is unacceptable as a leader in this field. And we collectively as a group need to do something to change the culture, support them with programs and services and funding. Because if we don't, in a few short years, there'll be nobody to answer that phone, no matter what system or process we have in place. Something I'm very passionate about. I know the 911 coordinators are as well. I know in Dutchess, we're doing a lot. I have 4 people, dispatchers and peer-to-peer support training this week. So it's something that we're committed to, and I'm asking this group to commit that as well. Who knows what the future brings? I have some time to make some decisions and relax a little bit, but you may see me in another role in the near future. Apparently, we've done some good things and people want to talk to me about that. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dan. As I said last night, you'll be missed, so thank you. And thank you for championing a lot of the stuff, the teamwork and working together.
I don't plan on giving that up.
Good. All right, we'll move on to the SafeCom report. Mr. Costine.
Good morning. Jerry Reardon from Cambridge, Massachusetts, has been reelected for another 2 years as chair. I've been reelected for another 2 years as chair. And Mike Davis from Ulster County 911 has been elected to the executive board for 2 years. One of the concerns is foreign cyber actors. We've had some issues. We know who they are. Not going to discuss it any further at this meeting. Matt Delaney and I have discussed this in the past, and he can provide further information if need be. And he can always reach back to me or to Chris Tuttle. Documents in process, AI and ECCs. How are they being used? Resource overload in ECCs. That's something that Dana was just talking about. And forcing the carry into the verification with stir and shaken. That's still in progress, and we're trying to force that issue. One of the website items is grants, and we're putting that into a resource hub like we've done with some of the other products to make it easier to access information. There was a denial of service attack in the Austin area of Texas, impacting 21 ECCs. Again, something we have to look at. As we move into CAD to CAD IO, we have to enhance our firewalls to prevent the hacks from moving from one to another through the interoperability link. Nashville 911 is experimenting with AI for speech recognition, both not only for translation, but determine stress level in the voice as part of swatting and spoofing. They're using AI to say, well, it may not be real because there's no stress in the voice. LMR vulnerability. We're coming out with another document, going to be the second edition. And we're looking more now at non-digital. The first edition with digital vulnerabilities, which is more vulnerable, but digital is more vulnerable than analog in most cases. And trunking is more vulnerable than conventional. More computers, more vulnerability. It's just that simple. We can't forget that HF is still a very valuable resource. And that's been proven again in Helene and Milton. We don't look at it, but it's a valuable resource. We're also looking at encryption on the IO channels. For those that are familiar with 911 outages, a major carrier would just find a whole lot of millions of dollars for not keeping people advised on 911 outage issues. The last study on outdated equipment, $4.98 billion nationally is needed to replace outdated comms equipment. The director is going to be more willing to start writing checks. Next fiscal year's SLICP grant nationwide is going to be $279.9 million. That's going to be the pot to be divided up. As Chris mentioned, our next SafeCom meeting is in Cape Coral, and that's in November. In December, it's Orlando for Nixwick, followed by a World Cup meeting. Just to jump to the World Cup for a minute, one of the NECP monitoring look-ats is going to be comms in World Cup. So they're going to be looking at grants, how they're being used, and whether comms are being stood up properly for the World Cup. I don't have to be as diplomatic as Mr. Tuttle is, and most of you know me, I'm not diplomatic. Helene and Milton for communications nightmares. Towers don't work when they're down physically. They don't work when there's no power. You can't bring in a cow when you've got no roads. They're kind of heavy. Even when you have a tower up, when you have no electricity and your fuel source is gone, you've got nothing. So what did work? Well, Simplest works. A lot of the LMR systems worked. Those people who had high orbit satellite systems found that they couldn't get a good sight picture in the mountains. Those agencies that used low orbiting satellites on the old type Iridium system had the same problem. So what did work? What worked with the same thing that worked with it at Maui, Starlink. They're small. You can run them off small battery packs. They were getting downlink on the mini systems in excess of 100 megabytes. They come networkable. Something we should be looking at and considering. From a personal observation, New York being a home rule state, in this regard, we're quite lucky. Because every county's emergency management knows how to plan for its county. So those of us from the flatlands know about coastal storms. Our brethren further up in the north know about blizzards and ice storms and the like. And we have a state that's got a lot of resources that can help us all. We train together, we work together. And it works. And I think the ComU program has to be maintained, enhanced where possible, where the funding exists. And we have to learn from our others' problems so that we can do joint problem solving. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions if you've got.
Any questions for Jay or any of our partners? Okay, we'll move on to old business. Any old business? Board? I'll entertain a motion to accept old business.
Second.
Mike Soretto, who made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Sheriff, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So it's funny, Jay, under new business, we're gonna be going over contingency planning and pay planning.
Matt, my title didn't change, so Matt's gonna help me out with this one, but, Matt and I presented this at the coordinators conference a couple weeks ago, doing a lot of research about contingency planning and PACE planning, that CCECD actually did a webinar about a couple weeks ago also. So we just wanted to let the 911 centers, know to go back and look at their contingency plans, right? So, NINA has, the National Emergency Number Association has, really a lot of standards, that in regards to 911 centers that they're great. So we referenced the NINA standard, it's, that title up there, about, PSAP Disaster and Contingency Plans, the model recommendation, that's the title of it. So each agency obviously is unique in its resources and operations, and as Jay was alluding to, the emergency manager should know their landscape and should know what they have and what they need. So we were offering that each PSAP should go back and modify or update the requirements and legal obligations of the differing modes of operations. So a couple questions that we asked the 911 Coordinators Association in going back to their 911 centers: have you reviewed your staffing levels to make plans to make sure there's adequate staffing in case there's a disaster? What are those? You know, what are the staffing plans? Do you have them? Do you have enough staff? Probably not, to make it good for a disaster. Does your policy and contracts have language that reflects the time and need? Telecommunicators, obviously, probably union contracts have, you know, overtime, on-call, different shifts, all of that, managerial rights. Make sure that you look at that. In your new employee onboarding, Mike and I were talking about this earlier. Do your new potential hires know that they probably could be kept over at the 911 center in case of a disaster? Do you have showers? Do you have beds? Do you have all of that stuff in your 911 center or close by so that you can prepare for that? Sorry, I'm late. Go ahead and have it. Thank you. IT security, obviously cybersecurity is a big talking point in a lot of 911 centers in our field and across the board. Does your PSAP have a concise cyber plan and training and awareness? Do your dispatchers know? Probably, most likely they do, but just go back and make sure that all of the things that they're talking about in the cybersecurity world are incorporated into your plan. The denial of service attacks against 911 centers. This is the checklist. Did you talk about this now? I don't remember now. Okay. So have you had conversations with your service providers on how they respond to TDOS event? Frontier Communications, how do you respond to it if I call you in the middle of the night and something's happened? Have you had those conversations with your providers? Ensuring, like Chris was saying, ensuring that your telecommunicators and their supervisors have access to phone numbers for your service providers, and go not 1 or 2 deep, but 3 or 4 deep in that list to make sure that you can get in contact with somebody at 2 a.m. Next slide, please. Discussing with your telephone system engineer or technician possible configuration changes. This is where that location-based routing will be awesome in the next gen world, so that you have policies in place so that when your 911 center goes down, it's being transferred to somebody else. Do you have those in place now? Those are the questions that we need to go back to our 911 centers and look at. There is a checklist on that NENA standard, so it just goes line by line on what you should have in your COOP plan or your disaster response plan. And you can just go line by line and check it off to make sure that you have it or updated. This was yours, Matt.
Yeah, so always, 2 layers of redundancy, the old expression 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So, have 2 layers of redundancy for all your major components, and that all the redundant systems, resistance need to be tested at least monthly. I mean, you need to know, is your failover plan, both the plan and the equipment going to work? You don't want to find out when it actually happens that there was some interconnection issue or some little glitch of how things work together, that they don't fail properly. But, you really, everything, your electrical power, your heating, ventilating, and cooling, your telephone service, both your 911 and your admin lines and other telephone services you might have coming in, your radio network. This could be, having redundancy is both your normal console connection. You also have, say, portable radios in the dispatch center that you can use to talk into your system if your consoles go down. Computer-aided dispatch. What's your redundancy there? Is it connectivity? Is it having your core, your servers located in 2 different centers? Is it having, maybe just your redundancy is you have pen and paper, but then again, does everybody know how to use it? And what do you do with it from there? Excellent. So, and ensure that your plans account for multiple failures occurring at the same time. So perhaps you have a loss of utility power due to a lightning strike, and maybe it strikes a pole outside your center, damages your transfer switch, then preventing a transfer to your generator. So you thought you had a generator, you thought you had a UPS, and then all of a sudden you had a failure in both systems at once. What do? Do you have the ability to connect in a separate generator in a trailer that your DPW can bring down to your center and get it back up and running? And does that bypass your transfer switch or your UPS? Because that failed. Actually, the center saw that not that long ago where they heard the generator running, thought they were on generator power. Turns out they had a problem with their UPS and they were actually on batteries. And when the batteries died, it never transferred to the generator. So the generator is running, but the UPS was the point of failure. And then if your failover, your 911 failover is to a 10-digit line, make sure there's no commonality in your equipment or your connections. So you might lose your 911 service due to a problem with either your telephone equipment or your phone system, your phone connection. But is there a commonality if you fail it over to 10-digit? Is it the same phone system? Is it come through the same server? Is it the same, phone equipment on the desk? And then what if the failure is your building? So say your failover is to your 10-digit. But you can't, your building is the failure point. So you evacuate, then you can't answer your 911 lines or your 10-digit lines because it wasn't an equipment failure, it was a center or building failure. So consider your failover to be another county or another geographically separate location than your main center. Regardless of the failover reason, just let it fail somewhere else so you can deal with whether it be an equipment or a facility issue. Excellent. And then in the event 911 is down, do you have procedures to notify your citizens? Emergency notification systems, variable message signs, public radio and television, media outlets. You got to factor in ADA requirements to receive and handle a call, TDD, TDY. How do you do that in your backup center or your neighboring centers? Social media, craft messages ahead of time and get internal approval. So perhaps do you have access to your social media for your county? If not, who does? Do you have multiple levels of contact? Are there multiple people who have that ability? Are there internal approval process required before you get that message out saying that you have a failure and, call this number instead? Go to the local fire department, but make sure the messages also say where the issue is. So say something like Empire County 911 outage. We've seen this a couple times, including as recently as last week. It was not a failure in New York State, but residents in New York who live near a border to another state received wireless emergency alerts saying that there was a 911 failure, but it didn't say where it was. It turns out it was not where they were. It was not in New York State, but they didn't know that because the message did not have that level of detail. So that can cause undue panic or delay, an actual emergency when 911 is working normally. They may see that and go to the local fire department when they could have called 911. So make sure you do that. We know at least one county in New York State has a predefined 10-digit emergency number that they use for dealing with a 911 outage, and it's set up. They have multiple PSAPs in their county. It's actually set up with like IVR where you pick up and it says, press 1 if you live in the towns of, press 2 if you live in the towns of, and it sends it to that PSAP's 10-digit number. So they have it all crafted ahead of time so they can just message right out that is it. There's no delay in trying to figure out what to say in the message. And then if your PSAP is text to 911 capable, what is your alternate routing for your text to 911 calls as well?
So PACE planning leads us to that. So if you haven't heard of PACE planning, I encourage you to go to the CISA website and look it up. It's fantastic. But PACE stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency. Oftentimes, PACE is on multiple plans for multiple systems and can be included into your COOP plan. So as an addendum or an appendix or whatever you want it to be. But it is a methodology that was developed by the U.S. military to help build resilient communications for units that need to communicate regardless of the situation they encounter. It's a tool for helping organizations prepare for backup communication capabilities in the out of the ordinary blue sky situations. Next slide, please. So the COOP plan we just discussed, and the PACE plan is probably going to be most likely a component of your COOP plan, but it helps organizations establish predictable and redundant communications capabilities in the changing operational environments that they encounter. Agencies need to ensure that the plans are feasible, acceptable, suitable, distinguishable, and complete. And it includes a blend of technical and operational experts in the PACE planning discussion. So bringing all the correct people to the table, the subject matter experts, is pivotal in your PACE planning. So the primary is your typical day-to-day method of communications, your blue sky sort of situation. Your alternates, the backup to the primary. Contingency is used when both primary and alternate have failed, and emergency is that situation that we never want to encounter, but we are encountering on a pretty regular basis now. Again, just another schematic to see primary, so this is your radio on day-to-day talk channels for your talk groups, telephones, data, email, all that. If that's down, what are you using? Are you going to use a different radio system? Are you going to use interop repeaters or base stations? Are you going to try to use cellular? If those two fail, contingency, cell phone, hopefully it's up. Satellite phones, our MSATs and our Iridium phones are awesome. And the emergency situation, do you have a person designated as a runner to pass notes to people that need to get a message to them? Or Starlink, maybe, I don't know. So in the webinar that we watched, the PACE planning, so they just actually took out a 8x11 piece of paper and they made columns and they said, getting all the people to the right table and listing out every single piece of equipment that 911 centers have access to, or they actually have in their 911 center, and write them out and put them into the categories of primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, and develop this plan. Anything to add, Matt, on that?
No, there's so many different ways you can communicate. It's just, figure out what those are and then go through them and make sure you have those tested.
So our example causes of system failure, we've talked about throughout the past couple of minutes, but user error, internal or outside. Matt talked about power outages, cellular network congestion. There's large events, major events going on that just disrupt your service. There's a cell site actual failure, internet loss, or loss of landline telephone, and email issues. Are we prepared to conduct business with runners, with our cops on the road delivering messages? So.
And even beyond that, one step further, are there things that maybe you don't think about are an emergency, but things you do every day? Maybe you have to email a report every day, or payroll, or other things that you do by email or electronic systems. What is your backup to do that if you don't have the email or the other electronic system? You have a cyber incident, IT has shut down your email or shut down your access to internet systems or so forth. What are your backup plans? How do you do those things that you need to do that maybe aren't part of answering the 911 call, but are necessary for the everyday operation of your center?
So some high-level reminders that we let the 911 center, the coordinators know about. Keep it simple, right? If you write a plan that's convoluted and technically over the top and a 911 dispatcher needs to institute it in the middle of the night, they might not know what they're talking about on this PACE plan. So keep it simple, high level. Once completed, users need to learn it. Like I just said, your dispatchers need to learn it. Your departments need to know it. Everybody needs to know it. So get everybody on the same playing field.
Yeah, and it's really important your neighboring jurisdictions know what your PACE plan is. So they, you may know how to contact, what methods you're going to use to contact them if you go down, but do they know what methods, that they can expect to hear from you, and do they know how to reach you if they try to call you on the phone and your phone doesn't answer? Do they know what other methods they can use to contact you?
It's good consortium level conversations to have at the consortium meetings too about PACE planning and what the other county's doing adjacent to you, so. Test your plans, unplug stuff. Matt says it very well. You say it the best. Unplug stuff. Make sure that, your plans are being tested and that they're working. And if they're not working, do an after action report on them and correcting those issues.
Much less stressful for everyone involved if you can know what to expect and how to execute it when you need to do it, rather than pulling out a binder that's covered in dust and you're looking it over and going, I don't even know what step one means because you've never done it before.
And that's it. For more information, go to CISA.gov. They do have a lot of information on it, and it's great stuff. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Two comments, if I may. First, for next year, we are in SafeCom looking at PTSD in ECCs. That's on our radar. It's something that we're going to be looking at because it's become a problem. And the other thing is, and it doesn't go through all communities, where you have backup facilities, part of your plan should be how you're going to move personnel from your primary facility to your backup facility. having the facility is wonderful, but how do you get people there?
Very good point, Dave.
Any other questions, comments?
Jeff Newting, ITS. Just a recent experience underscored sometimes the frailty and complexity of things that are even built to give us the redundancy. We had a circumstance where normally scheduled power outage caused, stuff to fall over to uninterrupted power supply, UPS, but it wasn't monitored. And those don't last forever. They die. And when they did, it was unexpected. So as you might imagine, with any modern network, telecommunications equipment, it doesn't always handle those things very gracefully when it's not anticipated. So even it's almost as if the things we put in that give us high availability and redundancy and resilience can sometimes lull us into an expectation that everything is fine. It's not if you're not watching the things that are there as your secondary or backup. Now, I don't know, that was probably a whole lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication with 3 or 4 different entities that were involved, power company, OGS, other state agencies, other tenants, not all understanding how it all goes together. But it did provide a really good example of, even when we take all those extraordinary steps, if somebody isn't knowing to look that, the power's been off for 8 hours, I wonder if stuff is going to start shutting down. The answer is yes, it will. If you don't have either bring the power back, or you've anticipated that, or that, hey, we don't want things to fall over to the UPS. We want them to be gracefully shut down until such time as the power is restored.
And that's actually, there's really follow on to that is you create a checklist. So if you say you lose electrical power, mainly when your generator starts, have a checklist and go, okay, I need to ensure that if the power outage lasts more than 12 hours, I've scheduled for a fuel delivery. I need to ensure that UPS has immediately ensure the UPS is transferred, and go down that checklist. And then, having the checklist noted every X number of hours, which things you're supposed to check. I need to make sure that, Buildings and Grounds comes and verifies that the oil, there isn't, an oil burn in the generator if it lasts more than 24 hours or something along those lines. And the other thing is the notifications. Say you have a generator test. Your generator does notify you every week. You get an email notification or some type of alert that your generator is running for the test. Make sure you're aware if you don't get that email. It becomes noise because you think, every week, I haven't gotten a generator test notification the last 3 weeks. Well, that's a problem because it probably means something's wrong.
Network diagram too, I think, is another good point to have in your PACE plans and your COOP plans. Make sure that your network diagrams, even if it's a high level, sort of situation, but people who are coming to fix the problem might not know your systems, right? So having that in your COOP and PACE is really good. And then roles and responsibilities along the lines of whose responsibility is it to maintain the UPS, right? I have that, unfortunately, is a fail forward sort of situation. I guess it was my responsibility at my 911 center to maintain my UPS. And so, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So good points, though. Thank you.
Questions, comments? So I know this presentation was done at the coordinators conference and it centers around 911 centers, but these things apply to whatever discipline you are. And your agency or who you work for should have a COOP plan and a PACE plan for whatever. Sometimes there's simple things too to start with, like when was the last time you updated your contact list? You know what I mean? If you have radios, what's your UID list look like? And who's assigned those radios? You'll find people have retired and moved on and we didn't update stuff. And we've started doing that here at Dishes and it's been very, very good. And we're pulling the items out and we're testing them. We recently did testing with our Iridium phones and made sure that folks knew how to actually use them. And that they work. So are the batteries charged, on these devices? Do you have charging cables? All these things are, really important. And we started doing it because of the predicted increase in the hurricane season, just to be prepared. But they shouldn't have to wait for those type of events. You should always be updating, so.
And not just that your battery is charged, is it still good? Your assets that are in your PACE plan, part of that testing monthly is so they don't become stale. If you use your portable radio every day in the field, you get used to what's the rotation cycle for that. Are you also rotating your satellite phone batteries every 3 years or whatnot? So you might not think about that because it's sitting in a drawer.
Right. When was the last time you pulled out the satellite phone? Or did you just throw it under the seat of the car? So, all right, good discussions. Really appreciate everybody's input, comments. So as we stated at the August meeting, due to increased need for deployable assets from our wireless carrier partners, we've asked the major carriers, to present. Last month, we had Verizon. This month, we're going to have AT&T FirstNet to a presentation. Again, these presentations are for informational purposes only to aid in your situational awareness. They're not going to be discussing any products or services that they may offer. Sales pitch. AT&T FirstNet, Marie Farrell, here, come on down.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for having us and giving us an opportunity to speak with all of you today. My name is Marie Farrell, FirstNet AT&T Sales Manager, and along with my team, we serve the counties from Westchester, Putnam, all the way up to Buffalo, and all our core state agencies. So with me today.
Hi, I'm Kim Radici. I work under Marie. I'm responsible for the core agencies in the SUNY colleges. I've been with the company quite a while, and I support our agencies like DEC, Parks, and so forth. So, Carl?
Hi, Carl Bussino. I am the Radio Access Network Director for AT&T. I have a team of radio engineers, essentially, that are responsible for the overall network for all of New York State as part of Northern New Jersey. So we support not only FirstNet, but our commercial customers as well.
And I'm David Cook. I know most all of you for a long time. I'm with the FirstNet Authority, a part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. They work for me. So before I start, I just want to take a moment. Mark?
He
just walked out. I wanted to thank him because this is a really prestigious group of some of the most knowledgeable communications brains in the state. And what you folks talk about here is super critical. I've been in communications for my whole career, and I've had calls go bad on both sides of the radio, and it's not a good day. It's a really crappy day. Our communications have changed over the course, right? We used to have wireline phones, didn't have any data. Then we got wireless phones. Now we got wireless phones that talk to satellites. It changes faster than we can keep up with it, literally. There's always something new coming out. And if you folks don't have good relationships with your cellular providers, no matter who they are, you're making a big mistake. You need to be able to call them up at any time, 24 hours a day, and say, Carl, I got a problem here. Marie, I need something there. Or the folks from any other vendor, you need the same relationship. You got to have them on speed dial. FirstNet is a result of the tragedies of September the 11th. Country had an attack. Everybody knows about it. Congress looked into it. Congress created the 9/11 Commission. 9/11 Commission took years to write a report. They wrote the report, and in it identified public safety communications as one of the biggest weaknesses this country had. So they looked at what to do with public safety communications, and it took them years to figure it out. And while they were waiting years, one of the few things that I've seen happen in my life, fire, EMS, and law enforcement all got together on the same bandwagon to promote the same thing, fixed communications. So Congress fixed communications partly by creating the FirstNet Authority, which was assigned into law on 2012 by President Obama. And they put us in the U.S. Department of Commerce for administrative purposes. Human resources, how do we get paid? All that kind of stuff is done through the Department of Commerce, but we're an independent authority. We don't report to anybody but Congress. So we put out an RFP after thousands of interviews across the country asking, what do you need by way of communication support? Data was just becoming a thing. You can't, I bet you there isn't anybody in this room that doesn't have a data device in their pocket. How many are you carrying on you, Paul? Just one today. Mark's got two sitting on, he's playing on one right now.
Playing Candy Crush.
Playing a game, Candy Crush. We can't live without data communications today, for business or for home. You gotta have cellular coverage. So we put together an RFP. AT&T was the only cellular provider to bid on it. They got the award. And the law said that we have to have FirstNet services available in every one of the 56 states and territories, 50 states, 5 territories, plus the District of Columbia. But the law doesn't say anybody needs to use it. It only says it's got to be available. How are you going to use it? It solves a problem for you. Hopefully it's better than any other provider, but we know it's not in all cases. Many cases, one of the other vendors has a better service, they have better coverage. We know that. Go with who's ever best. Hope it's us. If it's not, use what's best. Oh, by the way, we just signed another contract to extend for 10 years with another investment. None of the money invested into FirstNet is tax money. All of the money that goes into this program is self-generated, or it comes from the sale of spectrum by the FCC. We have to work when the government shuts down. We're not part of the regular budget where some elected official can say, put a red line through that, we don't want it anymore. I gotta work. Next slide, please. So this is where we've gone. We've only been around a few years. There's over 6 million connections, 28,000 agencies across the country. Look at some of these numbers, and this is true for everywhere in the country. 200 applications. How many apps you want on your phone? All of those apps are public safety oriented. Are there any games up there? Are there, Marie?
No.
Better not be. 800 devices. You can't list 800 devices. I can't think of 800 public safety devices, but there's 800 that have been tested and proven to work on the network. Square miles across the country mandated by law. This part here, which you heard about last meeting from Verizon, dedicated assets didn't exist before FirstNet for public safety. You couldn't call up somebody and say, I got a tower down, I need help. Why was that? Because we were such a small group. There's only 4 to 5 million emergency responders in this country. There's 350 plus million commercial users. So you got 350 million people here, 4 million over here. Who are you going to listen to? They're a business. They're for profit. We get that. So the government stepped in and we put money behind developing things for public safety, like your phone. Your phone got wet. If you're a fireman, you couldn't use it. If your phone got tossed because you're a police officer and it got broken, you couldn't use it. Public safety phones now can be put in a swimming pool, driven over with a truck, and you can pick it up and use it. And I could go on and on, story, but I don't want to spend a lot of time dragging it out. I hope this is all repeat. It's not, please yell at me later. If you want to talk with me as government to government, get a hold of anybody on Mark's team or go to the FirstNet.gov website and you'll find all my contact information. Thank you, Marie.
Yeah.
Okay, so, one of the important aspects of FirstNet, what we're held to from the FirstNet Authority, is providing a quality, a QoS, a quality of service, which basically means you're going to get faster speeds than commercial networks, right? So when we do a side-by-side comparison, on average, what we see is that the speeds and the quality of service that you're getting from FirstNet is better than commercial. You have network priority. So that means kind of the same thing. You are first to get on a network versus commercial. Preemption. When the first responder, if the network is busy and the first responder needs to use the network, we preempt our commercial customers. Those three are all about. Okay, what Dave forgot to mention was not only did FirstNet award AT&T the work to go deploy a FirstNet network, but they also gave us spectrum, right? So the key is the spectrum. And what's important about that spectrum, they gave us a 10 by 10 or 20 megahertz of spectrum in a low band at a 700 megahertz. That's designed specifically for first responders. Okay, so when first responders aren't using it, commercial customers can use it, but when a first responder needs it, they absolutely have to get it. And so we've deployed that spectrum throughout. We're continuing to deploy it more and more. But that's key with this slide, what this slide is showing here. So the blue line is showing that when a FirstNet subscriber connects to the network, they're connecting to the similar tower that commercial customers are connecting to, but they have the band 14 that's separate. Okay, they transverse over the same fiber. Our sites need to connect to our core network via fiber. They connect over that same fiber. But while they're going through that same fiber, they do have higher priority than commercial. Okay, so priority is kept there. It goes all the way through. And then when it gets to our core network, there is separate servers just for FirstNet users, right? So we don't keep commercial and FirstNet users on the same core. We had a situation about 6 months ago or so where our commercial network was affected, but because of a core issue, FirstNet wasn't affected.
So if I could just add, so with this and with the authority, there were very specific milestones that we had to meet. Otherwise, there are penalties against that. So not only did we build out a dedicated core network and separate your commercial traffic away from your traffic, but we have a data center. There's 6 data centers now backing this traffic up alone. They also required us to put up a security operations system and personnel separate from what our commercial people are doing. And they're monitoring just this traffic for cybersecurity threats, DDoS attacks. So this is literally a separate dedicated core network that we had to build before we could even deploy. Just wanted to add that.
Okay. What's also unique is we have this, what we call the response operations group. And it's a team of people that were first responders, and I still do some first responding, but they were in the public safety community. The only way you can be part of this response operation group is if you were part of the public safety organization, right? Within public safety at one point or another. Let's go to the next slide. I'll talk about some of the things they do. Their sole job is to support public safety, right? And FirstNet. So, as I mentioned, the former public safety, I forgot, or military as well. They are the heart of when a ticket is open, it goes through that team. When complaints come in, it goes through that team. So they keep FirstNet running, essentially, right? So my team supports them. We build the FirstNet network. They support the FirstNet network. Let's go to the next slide. This is the team. There's just in this group alone, dedicated again to FirstNet, there's 350 people that are dedicated to that. Within that, we have section chiefs. You see that broken out throughout. What's interesting is even though everybody kind of has their own separate area, they all support each other, right? There was a person that was supposed to be here today. I just support the network. There was a person that from the ROG group that was supposed to be here today presenting what the ROG does. He would have done a lot better job than me. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it because down southeast, supporting the hurricanes that just came through.
Wait, jump back.
I'm sorry.
I just want to point out one thing where these are aligned with FEMA territories. We have somebody, like he mentioned, that's not here, who's aligned with New York State. Marie and I are also on the front line working with the core state agencies, watching what's happening in the state. Whether that's at a county level, Marie has a team behind her for each county that's supported, or at the state level. So a lot of times, there was a lot of talk today about preparedness and testing and in your protocols. We also have that behind the scenes at AT&T, where we're watching in alignment with the agencies we support and usually making a call out or waiting for a call in and aligning our resources to be ready for deployment. So where there's tickets and processes that need to be placed, we're also proactively doing that to support the state.
What I wanted to point out is Sebastian Donnarumma, he goes by Bash. is your point of contact. And Bash is a retired police chief from New Jersey. They got incident command training. They know how to report to the IC post or Unified Command, and they know how to talk your talk. Thank you.
Okay, so this just shows how over the years, we've addressed more and more incidents. Right, so these are just what's tracked. So we have over 1,800 in 2023. I don't have the 2024 numbers, but it's well over that. The number just keeps growing every year. And when I say tracked, so there are situations where Maria will get a call, I'll get a call, and we work and we react to the issues. Those aren't tracked, okay? These are when a ticket is opened and it's brought to the ROG's attention. At that point, those are tracked. So there's more than what's even shown here, okay? For example, I support New York City as well, and there's constantly protesting going on in New York City, and we get a phone call, hey, can you check out this area? Can you make sure that we're gonna have good service in this area because there's gonna be protests here? So my team kind of gets involved. We don't create a ticket and go track that, but we do react to it and serve the individual customers that call us up for those. Okay, as part of support of the ROG, one of the things they do is they control the SAT, what's called the SAT Colt, a compact rapid deployment vehicle, as well as some mini series, small ones of those, and then they have a bunch of other solutions at their disposal. So when a ticket is created, they look at, okay, what is the problem? And they try to identify a solution with one of these items that we have here. Some are, it depends if it's a big coverage area, they'll bring out the SAT Colt. If it's a little smaller or it's limited access, they'll bring in the compact rapid deployment device.
So in the state of New York, all the governors had to opt in, and our governor at the time, he waited to the 11th hour, and one of the negotiations was the SAT Colt, so the top left. So in the state of New York, we actually staged 2 SAT Colts ongoing. And then we also, for the city, we have one right outside in New Jersey. So this SAT Colt is actually, we have one based in Tully, and it helps us when you make that call or you open up that ticket, our response time, our SLA is 14 hours or less. There's no charge to you, but we've been able to be successful in getting that on the ground with all the tools necessary within 4 hours or less. And then we've been working with Matt. We're looking to bring one up into the Albany area as well. So those are here and available unless we have a disaster as such. And now all of our deployables, for the most part, are down south, helping and assisting all our first responders and survivors for that matter as well. The compact rapid deployable, this is amazing. So if you went to the 911 conference, we actually had one there. And this is satellite driven as well. We sell these to our customers. For those of you that went to 911, Chautauqua County, they purchased one of these. It actually supports Verizon as well as a backhaul. So we're not just about FirstNet and our network. We want to make sure that whatever you're carrying, that you're going to have connectivity. So this can literally sit on the back of a Suburban. It's very lightweight and it can fit through a people door. So these are actually deployed, and we say we have 180 in our fleet. But when we went down south and where we are today, and we spoke about it, people that own these, the counties, they were kind enough, as we all work together, to bring theirs in as well. So you can put this wherever you want. It has no interference with the macro site, and it'll give you connectivity as if you were on a cell site. So you can roll that up to the Adirondacks. God forbid we have an emergency up there and no carrier has coverage. Now you have support. Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
So just 2 clarifying things. It's been touched on that there's no charge to this. I just want to emphasize that. And there's 2 ways to engage on this, either a planned or an unplanned event. So if your agency, county is expecting a big concert, something like that, you can open up a ticket, contact Marie, and we deploy. In an emergency, an unplanned event, that's where we also go through ticketing and we're managing it. So there's 2 ways to do it. In either case, there is no charge. This is backed for you as a FirstNet customer.
Marie, I got a couple of quick things I want to add. One is that when you put in your ticket, you don't ask for a SAT code or a CRD. You tell them you have a problem and where it is, then they figure out what the solution is. The other thing is, if you do call for help, please notify this office. We would like to coordinate through Mark's team because we don't want tickets coming in locally and tickets coming in from the state and so on and so forth. So that's just a request. It's not a directive. We would appreciate it if you coordinate through OAC.
Which I've got Mega Range. Okay, so we have a device called Mega Range, and what's really interesting about this is it allows the mobile, or the device, I should say, it's a device, it's a fixed device that you put inside a vehicle. It allows it to transmit 6 times more power than your standard cell phone. Okay, so the biggest challenge in any cellular network is, we talk about coverage, and coverage is definitely a challenge, but it's not necessarily the coverage from the cell site to the mobile. It's typically from the mobile back to the cell site. Okay, and that's the great thing about Mega Range is that it gives you that extra power so that now the cell site can hear you better and you can actually have a better connection, communication. We've had situations where we have areas where you go there with your standard cell phone in your car and you drive through it and your phone goes to no service. We then put a Mega Range in that same vehicle, we drive through that same area and voila, you now have service where you didn't have it before. What's cool about Mega Range is it's your communication to the cell site, back to the network, and it creates a Wi-Fi bubble. Okay, there's different versions of it, but essentially it'll give you an Ethernet connection or a Wi-Fi connection. And it works great. It provides for coverage in areas that you didn't have coverage before.
I'll just add, so as Carl was sharing with you, you can have this more stationary, right, in your vehicle. It's a modem, and it can connect to your infrastructure of Cradle Voice or Sierra, whatever that might be. And as he shared, it creates that hotspot. So now anybody, any carrier with a cell phone can now connect because they connect via Wi-Fi, you just get the passcode. If you had a situation where you had a camera and it's on a pole and you need better coverage, you can do a fixed environment on that pole. It can bring that signal in, feed that Cradle Point, feed that camera, and now you have connectivity or better connectivity than you did before. And then the last piece of this is, really trying to close the gap because there are areas where we don't have a cell tower. So I have one customer, he's got 99.9% coverage now. We'll never say 100. But even if I can give my first responder 3 miles that they didn't have before, that can make a difference in your day. So we've seen it go as far as 30, but it's based on terrain. This we brought today just to show, but you can also use it in a Pelican case. So you don't have to just have it in your vehicle. The lid on this is the antenna. You power it up, you connect. Perfect. Go out into very rural areas. You're on a 4-wheeler. There you go. And now you have coverage in areas that we didn't have coverage before. So we just wanted to show you that not only can you have it fixed in your vehicle, but you can also have something that can be carried and be deployed very quickly with you.
Okay, so not only do we have a number of people that support the ROD, we also have a support dog. We bring these dogs out for disasters, and it's really for the first responders, right? When they're out there at a disaster, they're pretty exhausted, they've seen a lot of things, and they come back and they get to play with or pet the support dog. It's made a real difference. It's really fun to have them around.
We call him Rod the dog. We have multiple dogs, but we spoke about it this morning, right? And this really helps to take that edge off when you're on the ground in those difficult situations. So.
These are just some examples of the deployments that we've done. I do want to point out, as I was going through the numbers before, the tickets that we have, we supported for Carolinas, we supported about 50 different The response group got about 50 different tickets that came through that. And then for Helena, they got about 200, right, for Florida that they responded to and we deployed as needed and stuff. So it was, we were pretty busy. And these are just some examples of where we've deployed, how we've deployed.
Even like down in the city, right, for New Year's, and those are all planned events. We have the marathon coming. We're gonna be front and center. So all those planned events are just as important. So in our backyard, just wanted to share a couple of areas where we were able to help and support. The PGA, we all had last summer. We were able to gather up over 100 cell phones and deploy them quickly within 24 hours of a call that came in. And we helped and assisted them so that they had their key personnel had, FirstNet, the dedicated network, so that they could communicate. I mentioned, the ball drop. We do that every year. Then we had an unfortunate situation. The sergeant called me personally when the little missing girl went missing, but she was found, so that's a good news story. But within 3 hours, we had not only the SAC Colt, we had cell phones, we had the mega range, we had everything in their hands. In addition to them already carrying FirstNet, but that's what we do. So I had multiple people on the ground with them. And then the eclipse. I'm gonna let you take this on because this is a great news story. I'll give you the starting. But we didn't deploy at all for the eclipse. And the eclipse is driving me crazy a little bit. I'm just gonna be honest. But working with other counties, and we never had to deploy and we never had a problem. And the reason why is due to the network.
So, yeah, so I kind of touched on it a little bit before. We're able to dedicate, and what we did through the whole state was dedicate Band 14 just for FirstNet. As I mentioned before, we have a way of, so it's automatic, when first responders need Band 14, it'll push commercial customers off automatically. But, when there's certain situations that are occurring, when there's a disaster occurring or a special event occurring, we like to be a little extra cautious. And we say, don't even let the commercial subscribers use Band 14 at all, right? So we absolutely dedicate Band 14 just for first responders in those situations. It's just kind of an extra step that we take just to be extra sure.
Yeah, and that's why when we talk about planned events, it's really, really critical that you share that with us. So that, give us 30 days so that we can make that happen for you. So that if you're carrying FirstNet, you have that connectivity no matter what.
I do also want to point out that we do deploy our own commercial cows for special events. But when we deploy those cows, we also put Band 14 on them so that it works for first responders as well. So, during these, especially Watkins Glen was one we just had, the State Fair we just had.
Yep.
There were 33 tickets for New York State to date and we responded to 22, whether it was a deployment or a network optimization.
Yeah. All right, so how to reach us, we'll get through this. We got about 5 minutes here. So as we were sharing, if you're already a FirstNet customer, you have the FirstNet Central. It's a portal that you would go into and you can actually fill out a ticket online. But if you call the dedicated 800 number that we have listed here, no matter whether you're with us or not, you would take that number as soon as the reporting comes on, just say deployable, and it routes you immediately to the team. They'll fill out the ticket, and then that ticket gets routed to our ROG team, myself, and the rep of choice for that area. So 2 ways to do that, again. And then obviously, we're triaging the network on an ongoing basis as well. So like they were sharing, we don't just deploy. We're already looking at the on-call and Carl. We're looking at the network. We're making sure what cell sites are surrounding that area. What's the health of that network? And then to her point, we have all these tickets that come in. Doesn't mean we're going to deploy, but don't not call. Okay. I would rather have the ticket and triage that ticket than not to have it at all, because I want to know what's on the background of the network. So there's no charge to it. Open the ticket and we'll help and assist. So if you do have FirstNet and you haven't seen it yet, there is a tile, I call it. You just hit the tile, it says requested deployable. It immediately opens up and then you can start filling in your account information. And then the ticket is transmitted back out to us as well as to you. Pretty easy. So just want to finish up saying that if you want more information, we have firstnet.gov, which is part of your organization. You can go and it's updated on a regular basis, gives you all the information. And then we have our firstnet.com as well. Just to close out today, and again, thank you so much for this time. One of the things that we do on an ongoing basis is what we call a knowledge session. Because I think it's really important. I met with the county the other day, and the sheriff said to me, "Gosh, you're not just a cell phone and a Wi-Fi cradle point or router company, are you?" And I was like, "No, sir, we're not." And so we're gonna be holding a knowledge session, October 29th, Onondaga Emergency Management Center. And we're gonna be talking about the new developments of our technology that the authority said we needed to do. So I listened to what you all said today and the planning that you're trying to accomplish. We have a lot of tool sets to augment your infrastructure and give you that resiliency and redundancy that you need. So when you talk about your P25 and your two-way radios, it took us 4 years, I'll be honest, but we now can connect via an ISSI connection. And Central New York Consortium was kind enough to work with us for the past 4 years. And we have a live connection now for the two-way radios to transmit your talk paths back out to a handheld device of choice. So we're going to be showcasing that. We're also going to have school safety. You all know that in our PSAPs, we have a company called Interoperable. They'll be there, they're expanding, so that now our SROs, they'll have something on their hip that they can communicate right back to your PSAPs. So we'll have that there. The ROD team will be there, we hope, and we're gonna bring a CRD and we'll showcase it there, just to give you guys more insight of how it works and what's available to you. So if you didn't receive an invite and you'd like to attend, it's an all-day event. It's October 29th. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, appreciate it. So just to close out this portion, we had Verizon at the last meeting and AT&T at this meeting, again, for situational awareness on the deployables that they have available. Who do require to fall for that. Now you know what's out there. Do we have any other new business? Chris?
Two things really quick. Just a reminder to everybody, please, if you have any swatting or spoofing incidents occur at 911 centers, please report to what you see so we can continue to track them. It's still a major national level interest on that. And also, I know Jay kind of danced around it. I was a little bit more frank about it. The threat from some foreign countries to our country, but as pertains to critical infrastructure communications, is real. I highly recommend that you track the select committee on the Chinese Communist Party. It's a House and Senate joint committee. Specifically, go back to January 31st on their website. It's fine. It's open source. It's all open source. And there's really good testimony. It's long. It's about 2 hours. I encourage you to listen to it. Director Easterly from CISA testified there. It was very specific on critical infrastructure, including communications. And like I said, it's all open source information. The current administration, it's bipartisan, so I'm not getting political, but is very forthcoming and frank with what the threats are internationally to this country, and something we ought to be very aware of. So it's the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. It's open source on their website, .gov website, and all their previous stuff is posted, both videos and data.
I watched, it was excellent. There's a lot of good information in there. Anything else, Chris?
That's it.
All right, any other new business or? Okay, I guess we'll entertain a motion to accept new business. Alan Turner, second.
Terry, second.
Terry, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, anything for the good of the order? So I would like to wish everybody a happy, safe holiday season. And I get to say our next meeting is in January, so we'll see everyone next year. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Brian Fleur, second. Vera, Brian, that's true. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
You could post it to report to.
Yeah, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I guess, I mean, I was on.
I'm doing the sheriff.
Going to the order.